right. Hello. I think I'm just going to start this podcast off by screaming because I genuinely totally despise beginning every single time. The actual content and the things that I talk about, I feel like I always get into flow with it, but beginning it, I don't love it. I don't love it. So, hi. Thanks for being here. It has kind of been a little bit since I have posted. It's been like a month, which feels really long in my head. I feel like just as soon as the holidays start, everything gets a little bit weird and time starts to speed up even more. And now we're already at the like end of 2026, and I'm aware of it, but like can't really grasp it. I went to write the date down and I know what day it is, but seeing it and then thinking about how this whole year went and just looking at it is blowing my mind. So I have been doing a lot of reflection, and I don't love New Year's in the sense of it's a brand new beginning and everything's starting over, because I really feel that more so in the spring. But there is some sort of attachment in terms of the calendar year that I think everybody feels regardless. And 2025 has just truly been one of the most insane years of my life. I don't want to say the hardest or the most challenging or anything like that, but it has really just been insane and probably one of the most transformative years of my life. Shout out to the year of the snake. And just collectively watching everybody also go through those same things, because I love monitoring the astrology of it, and I do operate from, the spring to spring clock. So the years itself, like the calendar years, normally don't have as much influence on me or just is in my awareness. And I feel like this year just, it's been intense and collectively intense, which is also really, interesting to see. But everybody has had a lot of shedding and transformation. And I think we all got to learn about what it means to actually evolve and transform. Because if you really want to be this thing, have this thing, be this person, whatever, it takes death of things that don't fit into that. And I think our generation is also very connected to manifestation and becoming the best version of yourself, and we're really able to see that we can achieve the things that we want and create the lives that we want, which is so beautiful. And I think it's interesting that we have all entered this year, and this year was like, okay, well, you're gonna learn how you actually get that, because I have never truly understood that more than this year. Because of course I think everybody wants to just be like, oh my goodness, I want to manifest this and I want this life, and I don't understand why it can't just pop into my reality tomorrow. And in some cases I think you kind of can, but I don't know. In the long haul, I think, well, time doesn't exist. So it really just kind of depends on how fast you're able to let everything go. And that's what speeds up or slows down, the time in which you get the things that you want. And I think that this year really showed everybody, the more that you fight, the more that you resist, the more that you refuse to detach from the things that you're so clung to, the harder it's going to be. And like, I think people will say that this year's been hard or challenging, but it's really showed me that I am the reason that things are hard or challenging. It's not the year, it's not the circumstance, it's not what's unfolding, it's not what's happening. I am the reason why it's so hard, because detaching and letting go of things is just an insanely natural part of life that a lot of people, myself included, have difficulty in. I think that it's not easy to always be able to let go of things. And, especially in a society where I think a lot of us grew up looking at go get a 9 to 5, get something stable, stay in that job forever, get married to the same person, have this house, stay here, like a very grounded sense of life modeled for us. And so I don't think that evolution and change, at least in my reality, felt very modeled. And I am just a person that I feel is always going through evolution and change and transformation. And I love that and have accepted that as a part of my life. But this year, I really was shown that it is literally all up to me. And if there's a problem, I am the problem, which is bittersweet. But truly, because I think it really just modeled transformation. And I think a lot of us also like to think that so much is outside of our control, or so many things are bad and it's happening and it's hard. And I've just truly been shown like suffering is a choice. Feeling things and experiencing things is one thing. Like, you will never escape grief, pain, sadness, the experience of any type of human emotion that comes with loss. But suffering and prolonging and staying attached and refusing to let go of things that you know that you need to let go of, that is fully 100% in your hands. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it is completely in your hands. And I think coming to terms with that has just really been the theme of this year for me, and I think for other people, because we kind of had to get our shit rocked there for a little bit, it seems. And how attached you were to things depended on, like, or what am I saying? What are words? How attached you were to things really reflected how hard it was. And yeah, I just really developed a different relationship with the idea of struggle and hardship, and suffering this year, because at the end of the day, we really do have full control of our lives and our reality and our person. And that doesn't mean that we aren't going to feel feelings and run into experiences that are human. But at the end of the day, it is literally like, laying on the floor and being like, well, are you going to pick yourself up, or are you going to wallow in it? Like, you do choose your suffering. And I'm speaking to myself on this. Because that is just, it was so hard for me to accept it. I've spoken about it before, but understanding that you are in charge of your life and you create everything is also, it also brings up the fact that you have to accept that you've created stuff that you don't want. And that is really, really hard. And I was attached to that idea or I wasn't aware of that idea for a really long time. Anyways, so damn, yeah, I guess that's what I've learned this year. It hasn't been easy by any means, and it has just really held a lot of loss, but I think I have learned so many, I don't even want to say lessons, but I've been able to really understand how necessary, how do I want to say this? Because I think that it's hard to understand when people are like, that's a challenge, that's a test, because I don't love to look at life as this huge obstacle of things to get over, but I think that everybody has their own perspective on the human experience. Obviously, everybody has their own path, their own journey, and we're all the same thing, but at the end of the day, we're all separate while we're here, and we all have our own take on things and ideas of how we're supposed to be here. And I think that, some people view it as a complete and total playground. Other people view it as school, as something that is really filled with, for lack of a better word, challenges and tests. I like to feel like I'm somewhere along the middle. I used to really struggle with understanding one or the other and trying to figure out the meaning of it and what I should be doing. But I think that just like anything, there's balance in that. And I've understood that we are here to have fun and to create and to have an amazing time and to love and to experience. And I'm so passionate about that side. And I think this year I really was able to understand not the hardship perspective, but just the acceptance of inevitable human experiences. You know, no matter how much fun you have, no matter how much money you create, no matter how, no matter what dream career you have created for yourself, no matter what you have, no matter how you live your life, there are always going to be human experiences that you cannot escape, no matter how healed you are or how much therapy you go through or, whatever. There are those things that grief, loss, sadness, human emotion, human experiences that you will just never, ever, ever be able to run away from, and you shouldn't. That is an inevitable part of the human experience, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. We just define it as bad because we experience really uncomfortable feelings and emotions, and maybe we don't love it. But I really have been able to see that those experiences are necessary. We may not love them, and we may want to categorize them as bad, and rightfully so, because some of them really fucking suck. But at the end of the day, I really have been able to appreciate both and not just get really fucking frustrated at things that feel hard or things that feel like a challenge. I've been able to kind of see it as like a fun game, like merging the two and really being able to like appreciate the hardships. Like, it sounds so like, yeah, obviously, but I think that there are cliches in life where when you really, like, when they really hit and you actually sit back in that moment and you get it, you kind of understand why it's a cliche, because everybody has kind of have that aha moment, and that was really one of those, and I'm very grateful for that, because I think that a lot of people are going to come out of this year and enter the next really ready to charge forward. It's going to be the year of the horse. I've literally never followed like any of this, but I have been sucked in after this year, and the year of the horse sounds great. Forward movement sounds fabulous, because this year was just like ridding everything that is not going to come with me, and ridding everything so that I can be the person that I want to be. And I'm so grateful, so grateful that it's all happened, and just coming out of it and really learning that I'm not going to be able to escape feeling like shit at times, and grief and loss and all of those things. But I do have control over how I respond and how long I suffer and how I take care of myself. And having that sense of inner power really makes navigating the rest of life feel a little bit lighter. So I'm very excited to end this year. I've been doing a lot of reflecting, if you can't tell, especially on my journey of this podcast and introducing media as a new medium for me, and just kind of looking back and seeing posted my first video at the very end of June, so it's only been like 4.5 months, and it's been a journey already, one that's not going to stop. And I think I've really reflected on how I've entered it and my mindset and what I wanted, and just watching how it's shifted is already amazing, because I think I entered it very excited, and that's so amazing and beautiful, but I did have kind of a rigid idea of what was going to happen, and I wasn't leaving a lot of room for the journey and for things to evolve and to change and the creative process to take place, because at the end of the day, I think this felt, even though it is creative, it felt a little different than like my writing or, any other type of creative expression, because I was like, okay, well, it's going to be posted online on this platform. It felt a little more in the businessy route because, I have plans and dreams, and ideas for it. And so I lost a little bit of that creative connection, just because I was so focused on a lot of the technical things and, just making it into something that I can build for a really long time. Rather than just, I think sometimes writing just felt always like this is just something creative that I share for no particular reason, and there's no plan or long term goal in it, because it's just always going to be there and it's always something that I'm going to have. And this is different, and it's speaking, and I think, yeah, I just wasn't as submerged in the creative process as I have been in other things, especially too because I do have other things going on, and I have come to really understand just how much this takes. I don't want to say this takes a lot of time. But it does, and I mean that in a good way. There's the sitting down to, I mean, there's the whole process of coming to terms with what I'm going to talk about, and that is my own separate creative process that I have that, can last a day or a few days, where I'm writing and sitting and thinking and, just really processing what I'm going through so that I know what to come on here and talk about. And through all of that, I get the ideas and I come to, and then, there's the entire process of sitting down and doing it. And if I do something I don't like, or if I'm not feeling it and I have to re-record or do it another day, and then I have to go and edit it, and then I have to post it, and then I have to think about, do I want to post little clips of it and like kind of promote it and or whatever, and so it's a whole process, it's a whole thing, and I love it truly. But I definitely was shown this year that it takes a specific amount of time that you need to carve out, and that's where like creative discipline does come in, especially when you have so many other things in life going on. But I was able to really see the process and understand, and I cut it short there for a little bit because I was like, well, I just have to get it out, and I have to post once a week, so I need to sit down and I need to get it out. And I wouldn't do the prep that I needed to do, and I would just be like, okay, well, I'll sit down and talk, and none of it came out bad, and I don't judge anything that I have, but I can just tell a difference when I really give myself the time to prepare, not in a sense of like being really rigid with a script or anything, but just sitting with myself and seeing what needs to come out, versus having a lot of chaos and then sitting down and boop, just having anything, which, I don't know, maybe really both are completely accurate, and I don't know, nothing's better than the other, but regardless, I do see a difference personally. And maybe that's just the type of person I am. I don't know. I'm still learning, and navigating myself as a creative human, and always will be. But yeah, I've been doing so much reflection on the idea of creating and sharing, because there is such a fine line between what do I create and then how do I share it? What do I share? What stays private? What is just for me? And just the idea of expression in general. I think that I really wasn't able to separate myself from my art for a really long time. Because I have been writing since I was literally able to be conscious. That's always felt like me. I've always looked at the words in the journaling and been like, that's me, instead of that's an expression of me. And learning that distinction was really eye-opening, because I think I got that perspective when I was little, and then it just subconsciously became a thing. And it wasn't like every day I was like, oh, that's my writing, that's me. But subconsciously, I was always looking at that work as a reflection of me, but too intimately, to the point where I didn't want to share anything, because there was this fear of, well, I'm going to post this or share this writing, share this idea, share this thought. And especially if it's like poetic and very emotional, I look at it and I'm like, well, but that's not me. And as soon as I post this or share this, in a few days, I'm not going to feel that anymore. And then, there's this weird detachment from it because I'm like, but that's supposed to be me. My art and my work and the things that I share is supposed to be me. But that's not the case at all. Like, your art, no matter what medium it is an expression of not even you, but something you're experiencing, something that you're feeling, something that you're thinking, something that you're trying to understand and make sense of. It's not you in any sense. It's this human expression of something that is much bigger than you, and it helps to make sense of the human experience and what we're going through. And so learning that and having that detachment, especially when it comes to anything emotional, because emotions pass, obviously, and they're not you, and they don't stay forever. And so when you create a work of art that is really attached to less of like a universal idea and more of an emotion that you're experiencing in real time, there is a heavy need to detach from that and to understand that that is an expression of something that you as a human are feeling, and that's not you. And putting that out does not make that a part of you. That is something that you have just produced and something that you've experienced, and feeling and thought and experiences are meant to be expressed in some way or another. And I think that there's a tendency to have shame around that and have shame around expressing our inner thoughts and feelings and emotions because of the idea that they will pass or change or evolve, and we don't want to be known for or perceived as this thing, especially if it's an intense emotion. And it keeps you stuck because you feel like what you're sharing is this infinite statement, this concrete thing. Especially when I would post a lot of my writing, it felt like that was a statement that could not be changed, and that defined exactly how I thought. And I just had this very weird attachment to it. And it reminds me of in Billie Eilish's documentary, and she's talking about, I think it was Zanny, and somebody on her team was like, well, what if you change your mind? Or she was talking about not doing drugs in a sense, or not wanting to. And somebody on her team was like, well, what if you change your mind and, 10 years down the road, you do end up in that situation. And then you have this song that says that you never wanted to do it. And her mom was like, what the fuck? Like, you don't want her to put something out right now because you're afraid that in a few years or ever in her life, she's going to change her mind down the line. That's insane. And I really loved hearing that because I was like, yes, you're not supposed to make art as this definitive, ever-changing statement that is attached to your identity. Because that's just not the case. And you're going to change and evolve. That's why when you look at artists, they have so many different eras and versions and albums and expressions of all of the things that they are experiencing, because that's supposed to change. If an artist had the same exact album style and same similar lyrics and experiences every single time they posted something, you wouldn't listen to all of that. You would want it to change just as humans change, and you would want the fluidity and the dynamic. I really did love to hear that because it really shifted my mind on just the creative process in general and what you put out, because I think that is something that probably stumps nearly every person, artist who wants to do anything, is this idea of sharing and what that means, and what that means as, the perception of them, what that means to themselves experiencing that, and just all of the repercussions. And I think you can just get so stuck in your head of, what does this mean if I put this out there? Book, music, video, talking, art, whatever. What does this mean for me? What does this mean for the people experiencing that? How does that change perspectives of me? I mean, and these are all things that just like, you'll never know. You'll never have the answer to it. We all exist in other people's minds as whatever version of ourselves that they need to know. I have my idea of who I am, an identity, a self, a sense, and that's that. And I can't control anybody else's idea of who I am, and I never will, and I'm not meant to, because everybody is also meant to experience me in whatever way that they are supposed to, and vice versa to anybody else in my life. I think that you meet people exactly when you're supposed to, exactly as they are, for a specific reason. And so trying to control and perfect an identity of yourself is not only fucking yourself over, but it's also fucking over everybody else who is meant to experience you authentically. And if you're presenting a certain way, or like changing yourself and not showing up as you really are, you're screwing over everybody. And that's also something that is a really shocking, revelation, because I think it's easy to be like, but you have to be yourself because, you owe it to yourself and you deserve to show up authentically, which yes, you do, but there's also that other flip side of, you're also robbing everybody else of a version of you that they are supposed to experience if you're not showing up as yourself. And you also can't even, you can't attract the people that you're meant to attract. You can't attract the life that you're meant to attract if you're not showing up as the version of you that you're supposed to show up as. If you're trying to be somebody else, if you're trying to do somebody else, if you're filtering yourself like crazy, if all you're thinking of are other people's opinions and then monitoring, how you show up, like, you're robbing yourself, but you're also robbing everybody else around you. Like, we're all in this together, and we're all on this earth experiencing things and growing and meeting people for reasons. And I don't know, I think that really, really did help. Because sometimes you can't always do things for yourself, like showing up authentically, because it's hard and it's easy to shut down when you just think of yourself. But when you think of it in like oh, but this is also for others, like, I do owe it to the people around me to show up as myself, then I think it's a lot easier sometimes to make sure that you are staying authentic and true to yourself. What am I talking about? What am I talking about? That always happens when I like get in the flow of talking, and then it's like 20-30 minutes in and I'm like, where are we? What's going on? Am I even talking about what I was planning on talking about? And that's another thing. Because this was, I wanted to discuss like the creative process and sharing and all of those things. And I think my rigidity that surrounds my creative ideas sometimes prevents me from like getting into the flow of it. Because I'm like, okay, well, I'm supposed to talk about this thing. And then I try to like pull myself back to that when I'm just meant to take it wherever it's meant to go, And that's really fun, because that's where I think this medium is different in that sense. Because writing, I do that too. I don't sit down with writing and go, I'm going to write about this one topic. It might start like that, but it goes and it goes and it goes, and it finds its own flow and own direction. And by the time I'm at the end of it, I'm like, where the fuck did I even start? Like, where am I? And have to kind of like regroup and recenter. And that's such a wonderful thing. And I think that's like always an indicator that I am speaking from the flow and that I'm actually tapped into something, because when it's just my brain and I'm thinking about all these individual little things, and it kind of gets overwhelming. I'm really excited to continue to explore this medium and kind of talk about how it's going for me and navigating that, because I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of people coming on and having specific topics and like a lot of plans and things to discuss, which is awesome, and I do really enjoy doing that. But I think that there's value in speaking about the process of it all, and just like my inner world while I'm doing it and while I'm speaking, and the things that I go through while making it. But it is, I don't know, it's really fun. Reflecting back, it's so crazy how far I've come in like 4.5 months, and the ideas that I have for the future. And I don't know, I feel really grateful. And there is always a fear, I think, of like, especially when I take a break from things, because I've really been able to understand how my year is going to go with like my flow of production and putting things out, and how I predict my energy to operate. And again, it's always going to be different, but I'm really seeing that summer is obviously peak energy. It's when I'm going to be doing so much. And as I get into the end of fall and winter, like, I'm wanting to slow down. I want to take the holidays and be with my family and my friends, and not, force myself to do something that I don't want to do. But if I feel called, then I feel called, and I do want to do that. And I think once I get into that fall winter state, it's going to be a little bit less of, okay, I really need to make sure that I'm like disciplined and that I'm doing this, and a little bit more of, I'll do it when I feel like it. And that's also, another line of balance that I have to walk is, I need to make sure that I am showing up and doing what I need to do for myself and having that creative discipline, but I also need to honor the flow inside of me. And when I am just not feeling it, like, I recorded something the other day because it was just like perfect timing for me to do it. And I just could not, like, 5 minutes in, I just started crying because I felt this force. And I'm still really learning how to walk that with getting into media and all of that, because I know that a lot of podcasters and creators have a set day that they post stuff, and I need to be posting, once or twice a week in order to stay up with content and stay relevant and stay consistent and all of this stuff. And I am really just not fucking with that. I think that there is a little bit of discipline, but I don't know. I'm really starting to see that when I'm just in alignment with myself and I'm doing what feels right and I'm not being as rigid, I show up anyways, and I show up even more, and I show up way more present and aligned, and I feel way more connected with what I'm talking about when I just kind of flow with it. And I think that it varies from person to person, because my brain is so fucking rigid, and it wants to have, I write out 5-10 years plans. Like, I constantly, I'm so obsessive with planning out what I need to be doing and what that all means, and how I show up, and how often I have to show up in my daily routines, and I need to do this, that, and the other thing. And that doesn't work for me. It does work for me. I think I just cling to it too much, in a way of, like what I just said. I know what I want, and I know how I want to live my life. I know that I do really enjoy a morning routine and a night routine. I know that I love freedom and spontaneity, but there is something in having a little bit of a routine that I enjoy. And when it comes to my art and something that I want to create and share, there is a little bit of, I don't like discipline, I like devotion. There is this, I need to show up to it, but it's showing up to myself. And I feel like if I am aligned and tapped in with myself, I don't need to schedule my creativeness, it will come. I think showing up every day in general is a creative act. And I think that I've always had to had this idea of, especially doing the artist way, and having this creative discipline. Like, I have to show up and I have to go to my computer and I have to be creative, and that's when I turn it on, and I have this separate creative time that I need to do, instead of viewing my whole entire life as a creative act and a creative process. And from the moment that I wake up, I'm already creating and engaging with that side of life, and I'm already tapping into that. And then whatever I produce or express or create that day is what I'm meant to do. And having this forced, rigid, I have to talk about this, and I have to film this day, and I have to do this and that and the other thing, it's not working for me. And again, I think it is one of those things where if I set the intention of, this is a project I'm working on, this is something that I love, I would love to show up once a week on this platform, in this world, as a creative human, whatever. That just happens. I don't have to be so insanely disciplined and schedule time and make sure that I show up and make sure that I think that if I just have the intention of, I want to do this because this is something that is so connected to myself, I don't need to be so rigid about it because it's just going to happen. Because if I'm meant to do that and I am meant to flow and that's the way that I'm meant to be creative, as long as I am showing up and waking up and being a human being, that shit's going to flow out of me. It might not always be perfect. It might not always be easy. And it might not always be what I think it's going to be. But I would much rather wake up and just experience creativity as whatever it is instead of getting up and being so fucking disciplined and rigid about it. Discipline is something that I have a lot of shame around because I am not a very, very disciplined person in the idea of what I think we all like to think of as discipline. Like, I am not going to wake up and live the exact same day every single day, but I am going to wake up every single day and show up. And that is my own idea of discipline. And I think everybody's is different. And I don't think that there's one right way, obviously, to live life and to live your day to day, because that's what makes us different and human and unique. And there is no, this is exactly how you should live, other than whatever feels right for you. Because every day I like to be a little bit different. And I think that I have those few things that I guess the discipline falls in of, like, I know that I'm going to have a morning routine and I know that I'm going to have a night routine and I know that I'm going to be creative and aligned throughout my day. And I know that I'm going to meet any responsibility that I have promised. But outside of that, you know, I don't love rigidity and I don't love you have to sit down and create and do this at this time and post it on this day. And it has to, you know, your weeks have to be the same and look like this, because that just like burns out the creative fire for me. And so accepting that and removing the shame around that has been really good. And then that's when I'm the most creative. That's when I'm the most like on my shit. That's when things happen. You know, when I separate myself from being so insanely rigid, it's like the things just happen on their own. Instead of like making I have obsessive tendencies. Instead of making a million lists of the things that I need to do and then getting really anxious about all the things I have to do and stressing myself and being like, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to whatever. When I just sit down and I'm like, hey, I do have the intention of getting this stuff done for this week. You know, that's kind of my goal. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you know, cool. 9 times out of 10, all that shit gets done and more. And I am so aligned and I feel accomplished, and not even just in a creative sense, but in a life sense. I still feel like I'm way more energetic and motivated to, you know, clean and do laundry and do the shitty things that sometimes we don't want to do. But when I force myself to, or I'm hard on myself and I'm like just pressuring myself into this unnecessary discipline that even goes further than discipline and enters a territory of obsessiveness, I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, we're removing shame around the idea of what discipline means to you and how you're supposed to show up in your life and in your creative world. And I will die on that hill of, you know, I think what I've learned the most this year in terms of my expression and creativity and showing up in this life, it is that if I wake up and I live every moment of my life in creative alignment, instead of seeing it as this separate time or this separate part of myself that I have to engage with, everything just naturally unfolds in a better way. And I'm really excited to kind of see that, because I just now kind of deviated within this past month, deviated away from having this set plan and this day and that and the other thing. And so it's something I'm trying. And if I, you know, go through it and I'm like, this is a little ungrounded and maybe I do need to be more disciplined on the days, and you know what, I can revert back to it. But I really just want to spend the rest of fall, which is like fucking 2 weeks, but the winter really just flowing. And because I was gonna hard cut and be like, okay, I'm not gonna do anything in the winter. I'm just gonna like go inward and reflect and not put pressure on myself to put anything out. But I am not gonna be that rigid with myself either, because everything has to have a fucking whatever. But I'm just gonna let myself be and see what happens. And I fucking bet you that I will post way more than I even have over the summer and fall, because I'm gonna give myself some fucking space to exist as I'm meant to, and to just show up when I feel like it. And it's probably going to happen so much more often, because I'm not going to be overran with this unnecessary stress that I'm putting on myself for no reason. So, there's that. Um, yeah. I don't know what we've been talking about. I think we've covered a lot of bases. Ending the year, the creative process, and sharing some of the things that I've learned while doing this, and how I'm going to change it going forward a little bit, entering the winter, and allowing room for just more creative freedom within myself, and letting go of rigidity. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. I am still really incredibly in awe that I'm even doing this sometimes. And I'm so grateful that I have the support of people in my life, and people who are I don't even really know, in the real world. It means a lot, and I am super excited to just continue doing this and seeing the ways in which it evolves, and getting to meet people and just expand on this and expand with myself. So awesome. I will see y'all again at some point in the near future. I y'all, I won't write scripts, but I will write a script for the opening and the beginning, because the beginning and the ending, because I truly just reach a point where I'm like, and okay, bye. This was cool. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm gonna figure out some things that I'm gonna say to end it, because I do want to end it on like a good uh note. But yeah, I don't know. I'll see you when I see you. Everybody take care of yourselves and have a wonderful week.